Greetings, folks. This is Scott with the Game Audio Institute, and we're back again in our lovely constellation project. And there's been some progress. I've made some progress. It's been good because it's been pretty frustrating all day yesterday. I couldn't do anything. So, well, I was able to do some things like the three lanes that you saw there. But we are making some good progress since then, actually, on a very important thing that I was been trying to deal with, and it is actually one of the things that if you're coming from Unity, in the case of this situation, it's very frustrating because there's just a lot of things that Unreal just sort of sets up automatically for you, and it just assumes that you want this, and sometimes you don't want it. And then you have to figure out what you have to deactivate in order to get the thing you don't want. In Unity, I find it just so much easier. It's just like, oh, if you want to make a static camera, you just create a camera on a static object, and then you can just use that as the camera. You just deactivate the other one, and there you go. Bang, static object, static camera when you play a game. Apparently, in Unreal, that's not what happens. Your camera automatically gets possessed, and then you have to unpossess it effectively. Is sort of like I found a little bit of a workaround. It's not quite like unpossessing, but it's freezing the camera basically in place. So let me show you how I did that. At the moment, I'll just show you the behavior that I did not want. Okay, so here's the basically deal. So if you click here inside our lovely place, you can see that moving the mouse, holding down the mouse button and moving the mouse is going to automatically rotate your thing. More importantly, and more problematic for my particular purposes right here, is that if you start playing back, right? And you start clicking anywhere here and dragging, guess what happens? Your whole screen just goes around and does a bunch of stuff. And if you didn't want that to happen, but which I don't for these testing purposes, I want it to be completely still, okay? So I was trying to figure out how to basically manage this whole sort of thing, and I finally found out the problem. Now, what happened is in order to be able to get things like these mouse events to happen, I had to create myself my own mouse controller thing. It's actually over here. You can't see it right now, but yeah, it's right there. So it's showing up in playback mode right here. So it's right over here. Mouse controller 0. And mouse controller uses the player camera manager, and the player camera manager is very cool thing. It's very useful. But what happens is that it automatically possesses the camera, and then it makes it automatically rotate in game playback mode, and I don't want that to happen. So what did I do in order to solve this problem? Okay, so what I ended up doing in this particular case was I took my mouse controller, and when it says player camera manager class, so I'm clicking on my mouse controller to see the details of this thing. Hopefully it'll work. Yeah, then if I click on the details of this, it shows player camera manager class. I can create a new player camera manager class, and that is exactly what I did. The original player manager camera class can't really be accessed except at runtime, and I didn't really know kind of how to do that exactly, so I decided to just do my own camera manager class instead, my new player manager camera manager class. So on the event manager for that camera class, it's actually on the new player camera manager class. Okay, so you can see what I ended up doing here, but I'll take you through it. Okay, so the things that I was able to do when I was playing the game is I was able to change these variables: yaw, pitch, and roll. Anybody who knows about 3D cameras knows that those are rotations for cameras, essentially. So yaw is side to side, basically, right? In this case, from an Unreal perspective, you're wrapping around Z rotation, so you're wrapping around the Z axis, essentially. The pitch is up and down, like this, right? And I don't remember what that's wrapping around, actually. It's either the X or the Y. I can't remember. Forgive me. And then roll is this. Roll is this. It's like this thing. Okay, so this is pitch, this is yaw, and this is roll, right? Or roll. this way, right? That's the idea. So what I ended up doing when I was playing the scene, I found out about those camera controls in the player camera manager, and I was able to, while I was playing the game, freeze those controls where I needed them to be, which basically gives them essentially no range, no minimum, no maximum, effectively. And it'll just freeze the camera at that point, basically. But what happened was, as soon as I stopped the game, it would all go back the way it was. So the next time I started, it would go back the way it was, and I'd have to go and re-enable all those things inside the details panel in the outliner for that, runtime object. So by creating my own class, I now have the ability to access everything here at runtime and do whatever the heck I want with it. So that is awesome. So here's what I did. I basically created a series of cascading sets. That's all it is. So just basically set the yaw min to 180. Yaw min to 180. It means I'm turning it around, turning the camera around 180 degrees. And I'm saying that's where you're going to stay. You're just going to stay at 180 degrees. And then set max at 0 and min at 0 and roll min at 0 and roll max at 0 here. And that, my friends, does it. That actually freezes the camera in place. And it's just one of the things that where you're taking a non-traditional gaming approach, it's just very frustrating dealing with this inside Unreal because of the fact that it automatically assumes you want this sort of thing. Even when you create a blank scene, it just automatically feels like, oh, well, this is what you want, right? This is what everybody wants, right? Everybody wants this kind of camera situation. And it's like, what if you don't want that camera situation? Then you have to undo that camera situation. I do like the fact that Unity starts from a more simple perspective, and it just, okay, you can build up your desires from the ground up instead of, subtracting what you don't want effectively to get what you want. And I find that to be very frustrating. But anyway, this is a problem that I have literally had since the beginning that I have started this whole project. And for a while, I was just working around that problem. But it becomes really problematic when I'm trying to click on these individual cells to light them up. So that's basically, if we turn this on, watch what's going to happen. Nothing. If I hold my mouse button down and I move my camera, I move my mouse, see, nothing's going on. And what means is that I can then click on any one of these sorts of things, or, these obviously, and I can play back everything that I need to have happen because I've got this totally locked in place. Okay? Right, so we've got this and we hit the space bar. Oh, it's going to decide to be a little obnoxious. All right, so for some reason, I don't know why, it half the time, it just decides it doesn't want to work the first time. And then if I do it all again, and yeah, this is all call function, subscribe to quantization, and then it just doesn't work. Maybe I need to wait a couple seconds or ticks or something like that for things to work. But once I do it the second time, it will actually work correctly. Maybe because I clicked something off in another place or something like that. I don't know. But if I do this, it should. Usually it works the second time. A few famous last words, right? Okay, let's just see what happens. And there we go. Okay. All right, so that is one of the things that I had really been needing to deal with for a long time that has finally been dealt with, and I can finally do things. Now, one of the things that I actually kind of was hoping to do at some point, which I will probably be doing in the VR version of this, is, if you hold down your controller, you can kind of paint the control, paint what you want inside there. So kind of like a clicking and dragging. I haven't figured out how to click and drag, but I do want to also maybe just sort of randomize the cells just, randomly and see how that will work. And for that, I might be able to show you how I'm going to make an event dispatcher hopefully work in this particular case. We shall see what happens. I have it partially built, so I can show you what I've got there, but we haven't actually created the event dispatcher to make things happen so far, right? The idea is the caller and then the binder. That's the thing, right? But the idea is, of course, so here's our issue. We have trigger position blueprint, okay? And what I want to do is I would like to make it so that it'll randomly turn on cells when I press a button on the layer on the layer object, right? So if I'm on the layer object, I'll be able to look at the details there. There'll be a button there that says randomize cells. So I'll click randomize cells and it'll randomly pick stuff. So I've actually got some stuff wired up here for this thing. I've got a random cell custom event made, okay? And I've got this random integer set, and basically it says maximum of 4. I could set this to whatever I wanted to. And remember, this is going to be what all of the cells, technically this is the trigger, but it finds the cell object associated with the trigger and turns on the visibility of that cell, essentially. That's the idea. And what happens is that it's going to randomly go and pick between 0 and 4. And actually it's 1 less than 4 really. So it'll be like 0 and 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. And then it'll return that value. And then basically I'm saying is if this is greater than 2, which means it's if it's 3, then it'll be true. And the new visibility will be true. Otherwise, it will be less than that, and it will be false. And then it will be not visible. So I'm making it kind of going to be sparse. It's about 1 out of every 4 rolls is going to be true. So about 25% of the time it'll be true. So it's not going to be super dense, comparatively speaking. If I did it at 50%, then it would be much more dense. There'd be a lot more stuff there. I want it to be kind of sparse looking. Okay, so I've made the thing that I need, okay? Now what I do need to do is I need to call an event dispatcher, or I need to bind this to an event dispatcher, but I'm not going to call it, right? I'm not calling it from here. I'm calling it from the layer object. Now, of course, I could just very easily just start this out at the beginning if I really wanted to make a quickie test of it to see if it works. Not a bad idea, actually. I could use it on an event begin play, and I could just put a little sequence on there and then just, okay, for the next object, okay, go and do this at the beginning, and then it'll turn on all the things or not. And then we can have it. But I thought this might be a nice try to see how we can do the event dispatcher method and see if we can make it work. And who knows, maybe run into some problems. Most likely run into some problems. Anyway, so we're going to try and do the same thing that we just did, that I was just talking about the event dispatcher here in this situation with a custom event and a custom dispatcher. So hang on. So for that, we are going to need to, on our trigger layer blueprint, we're going to need to essentially do the same thing here. We're going to basically create ourselves a custom event that we're going to have. And we can very easily do that. We can just simply say custom event, add custom event. And we're going to call this randomize. So, how about this? Randomize cells. Okay. Or actually randomize stars, really what's going to be when we get all the cool graphics and everything in this once in a while, once we actually do that. So this is going to be randomize cells. Now, one thing that I can do, like, looky here. I have this option at the top here, call in editor. So I can actually make that happen in the editor. Now, what I want to do now is I need to call an event dispatcher. The event dispatcher is going to be calling random cell. Call it that. Okay? There's my dispatcher. So now what I need to do, remember, I need to have a reference to this when I'm going to the binder, right? So that means I need to do both of the things and not just one of them. So here's the deal. I'm going to take my event dispatcher, and I think I can I, maybe I just can drag him out. Can I do that? Okay, call. Beautiful. So I can say call random cell, okay? And then that is going to say, here's what I want to have happen. And we don't really have to do too much except for saying, hey, call random cell. So that's what's going to happen. When I click the button randomize cells, it's going to call random cell. That's pretty much it, okay? Now I need to bind it. Now the binding, as far as I have been able to determine, has to take place here so that you have a reference to this object first. You don't have to hook it up to call, but you do have to basically make it be bound. So you're going to go here, random cell, go here, you're going to click bind, okay? There it goes, bind event to random cell. Now what you can do is you can cut it from here, and then you go over to here, to our trigger position blueprint, and you go back here and you say paste. Now we've got bind event to random cell, and the random cell we want to bind to is this event. Now, here's where things get a little bit on the tricky side. We need a reference to our trigger layer object, but that's what this target self automatically knows because we copied it from its source. Okay, so now if we go here, watch what happens. We can say basically cast to trigger position blueprint. Oh, wait, that's not right. Is it? That's definitely not it. Because that was not what I wanted. Why are you doing that? I thought that was not what I... No, 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 no. I definitely needed that to be the layer object. Hang on. That's the problem that I had here. I could not bind that event to random cell because random cell is going to the wrong object. Yeah, that can't work. It cannot work like that. Trigger position blueprint cannot do that. So I'm going to click compile. And I'm going to delete this because that's the wrong one. That's not going to work. I need to basically take the blueprint and I need to go here and make a copy. I was hoping that I could do that. Maybe I have to copy that plus the conversion of casting. Then it would work. Okay, let me try that. Let me try that option there. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to click bind. I'm going to drag this over to here, and then I'm going to say cast to trigger layer blueprint. Boink. There it is. And now I'm going to copy or cut this stuff here. I'm going to put it over in this stuff here. And then we'll see what happens. 1652. We're kind of close. Getting pretty close, I think. So now I can bind this event to the random cell, can bind this event that's target, joink, like that. There we go. Cast the trigger layer blueprint. It's looking for that. And of course, I do need to, hook it up to, the casting probably is not a big deal as far as order. Let me think about that. Yeah, I think, yeah, let me think about that. Yeah, okay. I think I've got the order here. This is going to be interesting. So let me go here to there, to there, to there actually, and then to there to there. So that's a little bit weird, but that's how the order is going to go. It's going to go here, cast the trigger, make the event happen, set the random thing, and then set the visibility on command. Now, this object, on the other hand, does need to be hooked up to something. So it's casting as a trigger layer blueprint, but we need the actual trigger layer blueprint object or an actor that gets acted as the trigger blueprint or whatever. So that probably means we might need to actually create ourselves another actor reference, I think. So we'll probably have to do this because that's what I had to do in the other case. I find it a little bit weird that we have to do that, but there might be a way around it. I don't know, but actor object reference. That's it. Object reference. So I do need to make sure that this is not called new var, but something more useful like layer object. Okay. And the layer object can potentially be set in the, I had a feeling it's going to freak out for that. Didn't like that because it doesn't know where to get all of those things. Can't connect pins. Yeah, hang on. We'll see what happens in this. Hopefully we can maybe get this going. We'll see what happens. I might be doing this wrong. All right. Looks like we might be having a bit of a problem, I guess. So once again, all right, let me see what I can do about this.